sooner or later, they always bring in the Easter Bunny. They say believing in God is like believing in the Easter Bunny. Or sometimes they use Santa Claus, or something that's a mythical thing that doesn't exist. They say you believe in God, that's just like believing in the Easter Bunny. And actually, it's not true. There are ways in which you can prove the existence of God through rational argument. And we can talk about that later, but the point is that it is possible to bring harmony between science and religion. But the first thing is, religion has to give up an awful lot of its traditions and superstitions and so on. So, the first definition of true religion is that it must be relevant. The second, it must be in harmony with science and reason. The third principle of good religion, we'll call it the principle of good religion, is that it must be the cause of unity. It must cause unity. Because unity is the same as life. If you look at the physical world, life is characterized by the gathering together and unification of atoms into molecules, into organic molecules, and together. That's what your body is. It's unifying a whole bunch of atoms. Now, if anything dies, what happens? Then you see disintegration. In fact, life is defined by integration, and death is defined by disintegration. And all matter is either entering towards life or disintegrating away from it. Would you agree? Now, if religion does not cause unity, it's better to have no religion at all, according to Abdu'l-Baha. Now this is interesting. He's a religious leader. He says, I prefer to have no religion than a religion that causes disunity. By that definition, we better not have Islam, Christianity, Judaism, Hinduism. Would you agree? Because all of those religions are causing disunity. All of them are even an excuse for dividing people. Isn't that right? And yet none of the religions teach it. Now, Baha'u'llah wrote to the Queen of England. He wrote to the Queen. Well, actually, he wrote to all the kings of the world. You know that? He wrote to Napoleon and the Tsar of Russia and the Kaiser, the Sultan of Turkey and the Shah of Iran. He wrote to all of them, and none of them wrote back, except one. They say that when Napoleon got the letter, he said, if this man be God, I am two gods. He cast the letter aside. So it said, God has his God. But Queen Victoria wrote back. The English queen, she wrote back and she said, if this be of God, it will surely prevail, and if not, it can do no harm. It's terribly British of her, And so she says that, and she writes him back and asks him some political advice of the day, and he writes her a very nice letter, and in that letter he says something interesting. He says, that which the Lord hath ordained as the sovereign remedy and mightiest instrument for the healing of all the world is the union of all its peoples in one universal cause, one common faith. He says what God has prescribed as the remedy for the world is unity. Okay? In other words, God is like a physician, he says. And a physician knows what things are symptoms and what is the root cause. Isn't that right? Because all illnesses have symptoms and root cause. And so this idea that unity is the first thing that mankind needs is not commonly believed even today. Most of us think that unity is something that may happen in the future, but we need to solve other problems first. Let's solve the problems of economics. Let's solve the problems of poverty. Let's solve the problems of the environment. Let's solve, political issues. In other words, let's solve this, solve that, solve this, working on all these little problems. And maybe in the distant future, unity will come. And Baha'u'llah says, no, it's the other way around. Unite first, and that will be very easy to solve those problems. It will be very easy, because those problems are a symptom of the underlying problem, which is disunity. You see? This is a fundamental concept that is quite revolutionary even to this day, but Baha'u'llah was able to write it to Queen Victoria way back then. So religion must cause unity, and if religion is not causing unity, it's of no use. Even if the Baha'i faith is not causing unity, it's better not to have it, according to Abdu'l-Baha. If you don't go back into your communities where you all come from and are loving and united and creating unity, there's no point in this religion. There's no point in this religion. And there is no power in this religion, because power comes from unity. Baha'u'llah says, so powerful is the light of unity that it can envelop the earth. That is the primary requirement of this day and age. That is the whole purpose, Baha'u'llah says, of the appearance of the messenger of God, is to bring unity to its peoples. So religion must cause that. Now, today, would you agree that all religions in the world, Hinduism, Buddhism, are relevant to today's world? Would you believe that all of them are in harmony with science and reason? Would you believe that all of them are the cause of unity and not the cause of disunity? So not all the religions are fulfilling the conditions which I'm saying here. 4, religion must be pure. In other words, it must be pure or divine from God. And it must be freed of man-made teachings and doctrines. Okay, so religion must be divine in origin and pure and freed from any man-made teachings. This is a very important concept, because it is completely hypocritical for a religion on one hand to say we come from God. We're divine. This, in other words, the angel Gabriel descended upon me, or a dove from heaven descended upon you, whatever the religion claims, that this comes from God. And then they have certain teachings that we look in history and we find that they didn't believe those teachings for 1,000 years, and then some man decided he wanted that teaching and put it in. And we can discover this by science or by history. We say, well, how can you believe in that? But you say it's divine in origin, but we know that a human being created it. Would you agree? So, this is hypocritical. A religion, if it's going to claim to be divine in origin, it must remain pure. Now, at the moment in the world, everyone is gradually discovering that pure food is better than man-made foods. Have you noticed this all over in America? Do you have this here in this country? In America now we have Whole Foods markets everywhere. And people, they look at the labels and they say, we don't want junk food and we don't want this. Because it appears that pure food is better than, how many of you prefer pure water to not pure water? You like it, is that right? Okay, religion has gradually become less and less pure because this just naturally happens. Because as history progresses, people want to have control or authority, or there's a certain thing they want wealth, they want power, and so they gradually add to the pure religion impurities. And religion gradually becomes impure, and so it needs purification, periodic purification, once every 1,000 years and so on. So religion must be pure, free of man-made teachings and doctrines. That's the 4th sign of true religion. Now, what time is it now? 40 minutes. It's 45 minutes. Do you want to hear the 5th, 6th, and 7th after a break? Yes. Do you want to?
You talk about food, so that's
Do you want one more? We'll do one more, and then we'll take a break, and then we'll do the 6th and 7th. Okay, the 5th, these are all signs of a true religion. This is a religion that unless we find this kind of religion, we are not going to change the world. The 5th is that true religion must be based on the belief that truth is relative and not absolute. Now this is a very interesting concept, because the idea that truth is absolute, that you can take truth and put it in a box and there's no more truth than that, is contrary to the way in which the world exists. To imagine, for example, that science knows everything there is about the world, there's no more to learn. Can you imagine if that were to happen? No. Isaac Newton discovered something, and Copernicus and Galileo, and then in the 19th century we learned. We're constantly learning. How many of you think that there is no more science to be learned? Nobody thinks that. Would you agree? But for some reason, with religious truth, sometimes the followers tend to think that all the truth necessary is in this box, and we no longer have to look for any more truth, because truth is absolute. Religious truth is absolute. This concept that religious truth is absolute is different to the way in which science looks at the world. But we are told that religious truth is also relative. It's also relative in the same way that scientific truth is relative, that there's constant learning. Now, science is ever evolving and truth is ever increasing. And there are many ways we know in the physical world or in psychology, we know how truth can be relative. We need to understand this in relation to religion. I'll give you a few examples, well-known examples, of how truth can be relative. Truth can change if your frame of reference changes. Frame of reference is a concept in science, which means that if something is moving or not moving, or something's in motion, or your perspective, or if I have a big long bar this way, I look at it, it looks like that. But if I look at it from here, it looks like a dot. They're both true, but my frame of reference has changed. And so when frame of reference changes, truth changes. Truth is not absolute. Truth is relative to frame of reference. This is a constant scientific concept that is always related. So anytime they're trying to establish the truth of something, they have to ask a number of questions. You know, how fast is it moving? Where is it? What location we are? What time is it? You know, what temperature is it? And so on. So this is one way in which truth can change. Another way in which truth can change is that the recipient of truth can change. The recipient of truth can change. For example, a child might, you might tell your child at 3 years old, don't go running out and play in the street. Okay, is that right? Would you say that? Okay, now let's say your child is 18 years old, and you say, can you go out in the street and buy me some milk and bring it back? And the child says, well, you told me never to go out and play in the street. I say, well, you've changed, and now you can do it. The recipient can change, and therefore truth can change. Are both things true? Of course, but the recipient has changed. Another way in which truth can change is that conditions can change. Even if the recipient doesn't change, conditions can change. A good example of this is that studies have shown throughout the world that if you lower the speed limit and drive slower, there are less deaths from car accidents. In the United States, sometimes a state will have a 75-mile-an-hour speed limit. They lower the speed limit to 65, and there are tens of thousands less deaths from car accidents. Okay, and scientifically they gradually, but it makes perfect sense. Would you agree? The faster you drive, the more likely you're going to have an accident, and if you do have an accident, you're hitting it faster and harder, more people are going to die. So would you agree that that's the truth? That the slower you drive, the less you're liable to die from accidents. Okay, now let's imagine you're driving down the road, and you have a car accident. Very bad. And you're injured, and an ambulance comes. And they put you in the ambulance, and someone says to the ambulance driver, make sure you drive to the hospital as slow as possible, because science has proven that people are more likely to die from a car accident if they drive faster. Would that make any sense? No. In fact, you should drive as fast as you can to not die. Okay, so the truth is exactly the opposite because the conditions are different. Would you agree? Nobody has any trouble understanding these concepts. Now, in the world, throughout history, the recipient changes. We as mankind change, just like a 3-year-old child, or the conditions change. And this is how truth can change. Truth is limitless. Truth is like an ocean. And I could take a bucket of the ocean and say, here's ocean. But somebody else could take another bucket from another part of the ocean, and it may not contain the same elements. It might contain different fish or something like that. Which one is true and which one's not true? They're both true if we believe that truth is relative and not absolute. But how many people do you know in life that think they know everything that they need to know? Not just religious, just they think, oh, I know all this, I know all that, I don't want to hear anything more. They become closed-minded. Once you become closed-minded and you don't think there's more to learn, then you lose the ability to know, the ability to learn, the ability to think. You lose your scientific, your rational faculty. It's a very important concept. And sometimes you meet old people that are like, have you ever right? Have you ever met someone like that? They just don't want to know anymore, and they know this, and don't tell me that. I know, because they basically put truth in a box, and they want to stay in that box, and nothing is outside of it. This is why I think Jesus said we must be like little children. Because children don't have this. I think that's what he meant by this. So this is a particular attitude that says, I don't know it all. And my religion, Christianity, Buddhism, Hinduism, doesn't have it all. It had a big scoop of ocean water, but the ocean is limitless. This is the concept that religious truth, just like scientific truth, is never absolute. That is the... Is that the fifth now? Yeah. So now you want to take a break? And have some food? And then I'll tell you the last two, and then we'll continue with this discussion. Thank you.